welcome back to the Sherwood Survivors podcast. Today we are all sporting our Chiefs wear.
Go team!
Mandy has a hat because the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl. And this will come out after that. So,
what's your prediction?
I think the Chiefs are gonna win.
Chiefs 40, Eagles 37.
She's nothing about. No.
That's my prediction.
I don't think it's gonna be like a super high scoring game. I think it's gonna be like very neck and neck.
Is that a high score?
Have you seen?
Yeah,
40's high.
Yeah, 40's high.
40's high?
40's high for those teams. Like if it was like us versus like I think the Browns suck or something, like them or something, like the Cardinals, that'd be normal. But like, sorry. But yeah, that would be normal. But like, this is gonna be like a close game. It's gonna be like probably in the 20s. I bet. But I bet we win.
And Rihanna, can't wait to see her.
Oh yeah.
Go team.
We are going to be talking about. Mandy came up with a topic. What is it, Mandy?
Spooky stories that happened in real life. Scary events in our life. Such as almost getting kidnapped.
Starting off with that. It's coming in hot.
So, to start it off, me and Rachel have a mutual story. It's a time we almost got kidnapped in a castle. Whenever we tell this story individually, no one believes us. Because we almost got kidnapped in a castle. It sounds wild. By a biker gang man. So,
Okay, why don't you, this is how we'll do it. You just start talking, and I'll fill in what you missed.
Yeah, because she's better at telling stories.
Go ahead.
So, we were hanging out. It was like the years before I went to UCM. So, like, my Maple Woods years. So, we're like 19.
It was like 2016, I think, or something.
Yeah, we're like 19. And she's like, hey, I went geocaching with friends. We found this castle that there's a geocache at the very top. It's on some guy's property, but, like, he likes having people come over, whatever. And so I was like...
I wonder who told me about that.
You went with friends, like, the day before, and you're like, I got it. I know a place. I gotta show you.
Oh, it's weird, because I was always thinking you brought us there. Keep going.
So, we get there. I drive. We pull up. And it's, like, this really cool... It's, like, you could call it a castle.
No, it's a cylinder, right?
It's a cylinder.
It's like a silo.
Yeah, every time you guys call it a castle and then we drove by it, I was like, that is not a castle.
Okay, the reason why we say it's a castle is because there's, like, the stones on the top and, like,
it looks
flags.
like one of those, like, little spire things of a castle.
Yeah. It's like a piece
like a
of
Rapunzel
castle.
situation.
Yes.
Ish.
A
But
Rapunzel
shorter
castle.
than that. Shorter and has a spiral.
Well, it's 3 stories. I mean, 2 stories with a porch on the top. So, anyway, it's like a staircase around, and then you get to the top.
On the inside.
No.
Or it's on the outside.
Outside, yeah.
So, you go up, and then there's a treasure chest, and I was, like, looking in that, and it's, like, where you put, like, your, like, prizes for geocache and write your name and whatever. And I'm looking, and I hear...
No, we didn't.
No, she was looking in it. She was, like, facing the treasure chest, booty up, and...
Face down, ass.
And I'm like, footsteps.
I always thought we didn't hear any footsteps.
So I heard it like it wasn't like a big like, oh, who's coming? It's like, oh, footsteps, look, someone's there.
Because whenever I tell people, I'm like, we literally just turned around and he was standing
Yeah, well, I go, oh, hey! Like, hey, heads up, there's someone behind us, but also greeting someone. I was like, oh, hey! He's like, hey guys, how's it going? It's this biker man, he's huge. He has a Son of Anarchy's vest, wearing like biker boots, smells like alcohol.
No, he's wearing
It's
leather alligator cowboy boots.
Biker boots for the Midwest. I don't know, he gave off biker vibes, but it's probably the giant Sons of Anarchy.
But he was wearing crocodile boots.
Yeah.
Alligator boots, yeah.
Yeah. Smells like alcohol. It's like 10 in
Red
the afternoon, like
That's
10 in
weird.
the morning. It's like not a normal time to be drinking unless...
I think it was like early afternoon. Like, let's say 1.
I thought it was earlier.
He had a little mimosa.
Yeah.
It's fine.
he had his-
I mean, you still probably shouldn't be drinking at 1 p.m.
It's 5
it was
o'clock
like
somewhere.
Okay.
So, we're like, small talk, and he's like, hey, yeah, my grandpa built this. Do you want to, like, I give tours of it, do you want to go check it out? And we look at each other, we're like, we have no other choice. He's standing in front of the only exit besides off the top of it.
Well, he said, I think we were like, we're just gonna go, and he was like, you could just look inside really quick.
Yeah, yeah. We're like, oh, well, yeah, we got somewhere to be, like, kind of, like, nicely being like, no.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, just real quick, I'll show you. And so, on the way down, you pass by 2 doors. Or is it 3?
Yeah.
2.
Well, no, 2. We got to the first, there's the top level, and then there's, the top level kind of is, and then there's 2 levels under that. So, like, we were standing on top.
Yes.
No roof. Like
So,
a deck type thing.
We follow him down, he leads us down.
To the first door.
And unlocks the first door. And it has this one with the couch that can pull out into...
No. That was the next.
Okay, well,
This had nothing in it. This had except for all the stuff on the walls.
Yes, there's like medieval like swords and like
Yeah.
weaponry. I don't know.
Hanging on all, like, surrounding the walls, but nothing inside except for on the walls.
Wasn't there like music equipment?
No, that was the second level.
Okay. Yeah, so...
Because when we got stuck in there was nothing in there.
Yeah, he's like telling us things about it, and he's like, yeah, my band likes to practice in here. As we're... he kind of like gets us inside, so we're inside
yeah,
of it.
because you went in, and I remember thinking, I'm going to stand out here, and Mandy can go in, because at least one of us...
Oh, I had a pocket knife too, and I had it on deck. Like, it was in my hand, ready to go.
But he did this really quick motion, because I remember being like, oh, this is literally how people get kidnapped, because I forethought, like, I'm not going inside. So one of us...
We had the vibes in our head talking, being
and I was
like...
I'm not going to go in there. And so I'm, like, standing outside the door, like, looking in, and then he's like, yeah, he starts talking about the door, and then he just does this kind of sweeping motion where he grabs the handle and kind of moves me, like, I think that he's trying to, like, move something, and then he just kind of closes it, and suddenly I'm, like, inside. Like, it was just, like, this motion of, like, and here's this door, and blah, 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 and then just, like, closed, and I'm like...
Yeah. And he's, like, talking about the structure, just, like, rambling on, talking about how thick the door is, how the whole place is bulletproof.
He said the door is, like, a foot thick, solid wood. This is where you want to go if you don't want to get... If you do something bad and you don't want to get caught, like, it is soundproof, it is bulletproof, like, no one will know you're in here.
My band practices in here, and no one
That
else
is the weirdest
gives
thing
a noise
of the whole
complaint. Like, you can scream as loud as you want, and no one can hear you. As he's standing, like, back to the door, and we're inside.
He's leaning. He's leaning like this against it. Arms crossed, and I am literally, like, just listening to him, shocked. I was like, this is not happening. And I remember looking at Mandy being like, this is literally... Because that was when I was still, like, fairly big into Criminal Minds, and I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I always am like, how does this stuff happen? And it literally just happened to me. That's what I'm thinking in my head. I'm like, we just got kidnapped.
And I'm thinking, we're not getting out of here. There's a possible weapon on the wall. That's basically it, besides the little tiny pocket knife I had.
It was, like, comically medieval weaponry. It was, like, the...
Yeah, like, I'd probably try to, like, pick it up to swing it, and
the
it's,
ball
like, 40 pounds.
mace.
Yeah, the mace thing. It was, like, swords. It was, like, the double-edged axe that is, the sphere thing. And I was like, where are we right now?
Yeah, like, is this where I die?
You, like, really... And then, I don't know what, but it was... I wish I
think
knew
he
how
felt
long we were actually in there, because it felt so long.
Yeah, I think he, like, eventually felt the awkward vibes.
Oh, and I didn't have my phone. It was in the car.
Yeah.
And Mandy had, like, 2% battery.
I remember when I was so freaked out when he, like, started walking us down. I was dating that guy at the time. I was, like, it was old school Snapchat where you could only say a certain amount of words or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just took a picture of his back.
But it was,
And
like,
I sent it off.
blurry.
Yeah, it was blurry. It was like an
no
old
way to know.
Samsung. Like, it was just like, I sent it. I was like, hopefully, like, I think you could only send Snapchats to one person at a time. I was talking to him, so I opened it, sent a picture. That's all that happened. I was like, he's gonna know. And so, just wait.
Yeah. Okay, so then I think he could, like, sense that we were, like, extremely... Because I think I said, hey, we really need to go. Because I remember starting to panic. And
You're
I
like,
was
I got things to do, we gotta go, we're in a hurry. Like,
well,
you were
I
saying
think I
that
had
the
said
whole
it a couple
time.
of times, and he hadn't said it, and then I was like, blurted out, like, loud, was like, we really need to go.
Yeah.
Like, because he, like, was not getting it, and then finally he was like, okay. And then he just, like, backed off the door, and I remember being like, is he gonna let us out? Is he gonna let us out? And he finally unlocked it and opened it. And I was like, okay, thank God. Okay, go.
And so then we're walking down, and he's like, oh, and then this room, which is, like, the first story.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still elevated.
Yeah.
If I'm thinking right.
Yeah, it was. Because you still had to go downstairs after that room.
Yeah.
But that was like the last level, I think.
And
Yeah.
so he opens it up, and I was like...
I gave Mandy a look and was like...
Yeah, she's like, oh, I gotta go. He's like, oh, real quick. Like, that's really...
Oh my gosh, I just forgot about what else happened at the... Okay.
Yeah, so we're in there. This one...
No, you go in, remember, because I was outside the door holding on to the railing like this. I was like this, and I was like, yeah, that looks good, like peeking in.
Yeah, I kind of like...
And I was like white knuckling the railing. I was like, he's not gonna get me in there.
Like, he's not pulling that move again.
No. And Mandy's like, this is interesting, and there's literally a pull-out couch open.
Like a bed.
A shower in there, like an old little open shower situation.
It was almost like an RV shower made of concrete.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it was.
And like...
And he was like, I'm pretty sure he was like, alluded to like us hanging out there. And I was like, no, that's not happening.
Yeah, so he was like, telling us more, just rambling on.
And
like,
if we look underage now, we for sure looked underage then. Because we were like barely 18, but like, surely he didn't think we were above 16. Because like, we just were so young.
Yeah, I mean, we drove there, so
Yeah,
it's probably
yeah,
like, 16.
At least 16, yeah.
So... that happens, and then eventually, like, she's like, I have to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, let's go. And he's like, finally, like, lets us leave. And we're like, all right, well, thanks for showing us around. Like, and he, like, keeps talking. He's like, oh, so are you guys in school, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah. I was like, oh, I graduated from, Liberty.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I graduated from Park Hill. And he goes... oh, I graduated from Park Hill.
About you, he was like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, he's like,
He was,
oh, man,
dogging it.
Liberty, And then he goes, oh, Park Hill, I graduated from there. And hugs her, and then, like, kisses her on the head.
It was on my cheek. I remember he grabbed me, and he was like, it was again, like, I was like, I don't know how this just happened. Because I'm standing there, I'm like, yeah, Park Hill, and he's like, oh my gosh, I love you. Like,
Yeah.
I graduated from Park Hill. Just envelops me in a hug, kisses my cheek, and I'm like...
Yeah, she's, like, shocked. I was like, well, we're gonna go. Nice, like, talking to you. And we, like, run to the car. And we're both just, like, I drive off as fast as possible, thinking he's gonna, like, follow us.
And Mandy and I sat in silence, I'm not kidding, for an actual solid probably 3 minutes. We weren't talking. We were
I
just
think we, like, drove to Target, because...
we were just like...
That's Mandy's fight or
But
flight.
the crazy...
Target
now! Public place! The crazy thing is we went to Target, and I called Jordan, or I called the guy I was dating at that time, and,
I didn't care. I mean, like,
no,
not
he
really.
he was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. I was like, I sent you a Snapchat, you were the one who was gonna know. He's like, oh, I didn't even, like, I just thought, like,
Well, you guys know
picture.
Mandy, and they don't, but, like, Mandy was like, Jordan, you won't believe this, like, yelling, like, dude, this is so crazy.
We're
panicking.
We had the
Like,
adrenaline still.
He's
He was
like,
oh.
oh, that's good, you got out. And we were like, why don't you care?
And so then we call her friend.
No, well, we ran into my mom.
Well, we called your
At
friend
Target.
first because
Oh,
you're like, we need someone who will actually understand the severity of what just happened. And we called her and she's like, I am so glad you guys are okay. And we're like, oh, that's all we needed to hear.
And then we ran to my mom and she
and then
also didn't get
at
it.
Target, Shar was there with Nathan.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, that's nice, kids. All right, well, it was good seeing you.
Like,
And we're like, what?
yes. Oh my gosh. So yeah.
We almost got kidnapped in a castle by a biker gang man.
Wow.
Okay, so one time we'll start with the oldest story. So I was taking the kids to the park because what else do you do with kids when they're crazy? Take them to the park. It was at, this park, English Landing.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
To
It's just people.
Our 7 viewers, I'm like, you can't know where we are. English Landing, which is normally like teeming with people. I mean, there's like always so many people there.
Very busy.
And it was like 10 a.m. So I figured at least like the joggers, the old lady walkers, they will be around, right? Parents with kids. Super nice day. It was like in the 60s. No one is there. Like, we are the only people there. And it was a really nice day. So that was also like just weird, but I didn't even think about it. I was like, honestly, thank God there's no one here because these kids are crazy, and I don't like when they interact with other children. So, like, I was, like, so happy. I was like, oh my gosh, we have the whole park to ourselves. This is the best. One of them was talking and walking, but the oldest one is, like, just very, like, all over the place, doesn't pay attention, like, he doesn't know what's going on. So he's, like, playing on the park. I have the other one. There's another one that's walking but not talking, and then one that's in the stroller, so not doing anything. And they're playing, and I'm, like, watching them, and then the one that walks and can't talk kind of, like, toddled over to me and, like, just put his hand on me, and I was, like, and he, like, never, I mean, that was, like, kind of abnormal. Like, he is aware, but, like, just for him to come over and, like, just stand there, and I was, like,
I've never heard this story before.
Oh.
I was like, what's up, buddy? And he just, like, stood there, and then he turns around and points his little finger, and he's, like, 2, like, that, not talking, points his little finger at this guy that's sitting on this bench, like, near the playground. And I was like, I hadn't noticed him, like, had no idea. Just sitting there alone. There's no other kids, and he's just watching the playground. And I was like, that's weird. And him doing that, like, really freaked me out. Like, even if it was just, like, because kids point at things. But I was like, that is so creepy. And so I was like, how do I, like, leave without drawing attention that we're leaving? Like, because we're the only people here with this guy. And he seemingly is just watching these kids. And it wasn't even, like, an older guy that I'm like, oh, maybe he, like, is lonely and just, like, that sounds weird to like kids. But you know what I mean? Like, this guy was, though, in his, like, 40s, maybe. Like, late 30s, early 40s. Like, it was just a weird age to be doing that without having a child there. And so I was like, bleep that. Hey, we gotta go. And he's like, da, 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 and I'm like,
So
hey.
you had 2 kids.
3.
3.
So, yeah. Double stroller, one of them walking. And I'm like, we gotta go, buddy. And he's like, I don't want to. And I'm like, we have to go. Like, come on, let's go. Which, that is why you have to teach your kids that to, like, obey you no matter what. Because I'm like, him fighting that, I'm like, we literally could have died. So I, like, strap them all in, and we're just, like, walking. Because I'm like, I'm not going to, like, run with this guy right here. And we start walking, and we get a little bit farther away, and he just gets up and starts walking behind us. And I'm like, and I'm like scouring for someone. There is literally no one in this park, which never happens.
That's
if you know this park,
abnormal.
never happens. And so I'm like scouring. I'm like getting my phone out. I texted my mom because she has my location. I was like, I just said I'm at like English Landing Park, and I figured if I didn't text her back and she got that, it would be like, and I said our code word that we use since we were little, and so. We're, like, walking, and this guy starts walking faster. And I start walking faster, and he's, like, matching our pace. Every time I get faster, he is walking. Oh, gosh. I get to the entrance of the parking lot that's closest to it, you know? And the van is, like, halfway down. And I'm like, we're gonna run to the car, okay? And he's like, okay. And so I'm, like, unlocking the car. We're jogging. I get to the back of the car, don't put the stroller in. I open the side door, put the kid in, get both of them out of the stroller, put them in, literally close the door, and as I'm closing the door, didn't even put the stroller in. This guy passive, but behind the back of the van, and goes to this car that's like a little bit further down, and just sits there. And I'm like, I mean, like, for sure following me, right? And so that happened. He ends up like driving off after a little bit.
How'd you get the stroller in the car?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So after a while, he drove off, and then I got out and put it in. But I was like, we might leave this here. Like, I was like, I am not getting out if this guy's still here. So yeah, that happened.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that one before. That's creepy.
That one creeps me out the most.
Oh, that's creepy.
I mean, I was like, remember thinking in my head, like, what am I gonna do if he just like takes one of us? Because he was coming up so quickly, like, had a mission. So creepy. Hated it.
Well, your hands are full with 3 kids.
Yes. Well, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I remember literally looking up and watching him walk towards me, unstrapping, and like just throwing them in. And the kid's been like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like,
Shut up!
I'm like, someone's gonna take us and cut us up into little pieces. Get in the car!
Shut up and move! Oh gosh.
Okay.
Well, going off of that one of mine is, and like it wasn't in the grocery store, but I was walking to my car, and this dude was just like sitting in his car. No. I saw him at checkout, and he was like kept looking at me, and I was like, okay, got all my stuff or whatever, And then I went and I was like, okay, I'm gonna like, I had like a bag. I didn't have a cart. So I was like, I just had a bag. I'm like, okay, good, like, or whatever. He like walks at the same time. I'm going down one like aisle
What
of
age?
like 20.
So like, okay.
Like 5 years ago? Yeah.
Okay.
6 years ago?
So like your your age at the time.
No, she was 20.
Oh, I meant his age.
You mean his age. Okay, probably like 40s, 50s,
Okay,
like white guy.
Okay. You said white guy.
We know. Anyway, anyway.
I think all of our stories are white middle-aged.
That's true.
But so I'm like, okay, so like I walk down like one thing or whatever, and then he's going down. So like the rows of cars, like mine's on this half of the row, and his is on this half. You going this way or whatever. I
like
get my car
like
first.
the cars facing
each other, yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm way ahead of him, and then he's like keeps walking or whatever. I'm like, okay. And like anytime that happens, I look and see what their car is.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I get out of I'm like, okay, it's like it was like a Jeep or something, and like a Jeepish looking car SUV. And I get out whatever, going out of Walmart. Usually people go out of the Walmart the normal way. No one usually goes out the back way. I go the back way.
Like where you pass
the
the
side.
vending machines
Like the side.
in the
The
little.
side, like where you're going, like where all the trucks are. I had pulled out before him. This is when I noticed it. He zoomed up behind me, and I was like, "That's weird," and like slammed on his brakes. I was like, "That's kind of weird."
That's a meme, isn't that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was weird. Cardi B says that.
Is she
and
doing
so I'm
a
like,
bit, or did she,
no, I know that she Cardi B says that. Anyway, and I'm like, that was weird. And so I'm like, okay. And so I pull out. I'm like, he like really like slammed on his brakes or whatever. And I was like, you like must have taken you a lot longer to get out. Like, why are you speeding? And then I go or whatever.
following you home?
He's like following me. And I'm like, okay, so I drive. I'm going straight. I'm like, all right, well, he's still like, take a right. I'm like, okay.
At least
still
you're
behind
home
me.
your parents and not alone.
Maybe you shouldn't say the street name.
Okay, still behind
She
me.
can believe.
Yeah, still behind me or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, a lot of people go this way. It's fine. And then, just to be safe, though, sometimes when I didn't think, or I thought people were following me, I'd pass my parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
If I pass it,
That's
I
fine.
turn it, and I'm like, he turns it.
Imagine he turns into your parents' house and you're like, what?
And so I'm like, oh, okay, he turns into whatever. I like keep going and everything, and then I like go through, like I go around like a little roundabout thing or whatever, that like a block that just comes right back out.
You're literally just
He's
doing
still
donuts and
going.
he's just like.
He's still following me. I go out of okay, I got to go to the police station.
No!
So I drove to the
I don't think I've heard this before.
no, oh yeah, I drove to police station because I was
The
like,
worst
what else
one.
do I? Well, I was like, that's the closest one to my
I
house.
Why did you call? Did you call someone?
I think I called my dad.
Okay, I would have been like, Dad.
I called my dad. I'm like, hey, just so you, okay, I did. I called my dad. I was like, just so you know, some dudes followed me. We're going to the police department. He's like, oh, okay.
Dude,
Like,
Dad just.
he's like, he's like, did you get license plate numbers? I'm like, yeah. And then he's like, okay. And so I'm driving it. I'm like, whoo! They keep looking in my rear.
Can you see what his face looks like?
Yeah.
What does it look
Well,
like?
she'd seen him in the store.
Yeah.
No. I mean, like, what was his expression?
Just-
Okay.
Staring.
He was going.
So not suspicious.
He was going like this.
Well, I just didn't know he was like. I picture someone following someone. I want them to be like. I feel like I picture them being like.
In a hat, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, it's all blacked out.
But that's suspicious.
hungry.
Ew.
Anyway, after that, I pulled up into the police, like, into the community center part of it, and then I turned on my turn signal and went that way, and then he passed me. And I was like, okay, and I sat there for a minute, and then I was like, and I saw him, like, keep going up. I was like, okay, and then I got out really fast, and I, like, sped off. I was like, ah! And then I went to my parents' house. But I was like, what the, like, I was like, okay, you must have been following me, because who the heck goes to the exact same way I did, and, like, loops around.
Did you
So that's my top scary story.
Yeah. Well, I think just driving in general, like, pay attention to who's following you. Like, I'm always looking in my rear view mirror and I say, if they follow me on this next turn, like, I'm gonna go around the block. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going home.
Never get your gas low enough where you can't run.
That's what my uncle always says. He's like, you always have a full tank in case you gotta run. And then I was
I've
like,
never
he told
heard
me
that.
that when I was like 16. He's like, oh, you can drive now. Always keep your gas tank
I mean,
full.
it makes sense.
I was like,
never heard it though.
okay.
Going off of Olivia's, this wasn't one I planned, but it made me think of it. Me and Lindsay were spending the night Olivia's house. Lindsay had work the next morning.
Or I came from work or something. So we
yeah,
had two cars.
We had 2 cars. One of us was in the Bug and one was in the Trailblazer. And we left at the same time, so she probably didn't have work. So she lives on a long driveway. Now they know where she lives.
You know, where Olivia's parents live.
And so, like, we pulled out, and then Lindsay pulled out, and then this car in front of me just, like, comes up over the hill. It's, like, normally, like, a 35-mile-an-hour road.
It's, like, a really hilly, like, 2-lane road.
So you really have to, like, look and be careful, and I just got my license, so I was, like, I was definitely, like, paying attention, because we were always, like, told to be very cautious about that turn. So I'm, like, looking, and I was, like, about to go, and this car just comes over the hill going, like, 50, 55. And so I was like, okay, wow, I'm glad that, like, guy didn't hit me, whatever. So I pull out, and then Lindsay, it goes to a 4-way stop. Lindsay's at the stop sign.
So I pulled out, the car comes and gets in the oncoming traffic lane. It gets a double yellow line you're not supposed to pass.
Oh, this was what, before the construction.
Yeah, this was
this is like
got
forever.
licenses. So he passed me, got in front of me. So, like, he passed on oncoming traffic and passed, and we got to the 4-way stop.
And I'm in front of Lindsay now, or behind Lindsay now.
So it's him, Lindsay, you.
So there's one car, him in a truck, me, Mandy.
Got it.
So he gets out of the driver's seat.
Okay, I remember this.
What? At the stoplight?
At the stop sign.
I was wondering if this was the story. Okay.
He gets out of the car.
I haven't heard this one
He
either.
walks up to the car. Or he gets out of his truck, walks to the front seat of the car, pulls this lady out of the car, and, like, they just start, like, fighting and screaming and yelling. And so, like, I have my phone, and it's Kansas City. You call 911, you get put on hold. So,
and I was doing the same
so
thing.
me and Mandy are just
So you're both
there,
on 911? Like,
on hold.
on hold, just watching this happen. Like, and there's nothing we can do. We can't move. We can't do anything.
Lindsay eventually went around.
No, I didn't.
Because I ended up being the one right there, and I was like, okay, trying to remember everything about this truck. Or, about the...
I didn't go around.
Eventually
so what
you
happened?
left, because you called me, and you're like, are you on phone with the... Or I was like, oh, I'm on the phone with 911
Did you have to get to work?
No. So what happened is something on the... So they got out of the car, and eventually she took something out of her car. She moved her car over to the side, took, like, a bag out of her car, put it in the truck. He starts trying to leave, but, like, how erratic he was driving, there was, like, an axle or something under the car spinning, and the car wasn't driving.
Yeah.
It, like, wasn't drivable.
What the heck? So I'm trying to remember everything about that car, but they ended up taking the other car.
Yeah. So then they got out of the truck. Like, I don't know what... They must have moved it over. They got
and
out
you
of
guys
the
are just
truck.
sitting... This is like a long ordeal that you're just sitting
And
there.
at one point
No,
throughout
it's not yet.
Okay.
So they get out of the truck, they get into the car.
Were they, like, mad you were watching?
They were too,
We
like,
couldn't do
caught up. They were
anything.
both, like, caught
Could
up
you
in their
not
thing.
go around?
We'd have to drive on to, like, oncoming traffic to do
Yeah,
it.
or like a ditch.
Yeah. So we're just stuck behind them. They don't care. They're, like, wrapped up in their own world. And so they get in the car. The truck, they must have moved it to the side. And then they just drive off.
And she,
then-
like,
and
was
you guys
not
are just, like-
consensually going. Like, it was not.
Well, kind of.
I mean,
It was like a domestic thing.
crying consensually, like, ugh, like, she clearly was trying to
Right.
escape.
But, like, he didn't, like, force her into the car.
Yeah, it was like, oh, you caught me. I don't want to, like, deal with this.
It was just an
now.
emotional situation.
Yeah.
So, as soon as they drive off, it's a 4-way stop. A cop gets to the 4-way stop. They drive off. He comes and turns on on the street we're on.
And I was, like, waving.
Because we're still on hold at this time.
Yeah, with 911.
Then,
Lindsay hung up, and I eventually...
well, because I was driving the Bug, so I was driving stick shift, and, like, didn't have Bluetooth or anything like that. So I just hung up and, like, drove off. And we went home.
I stayed on the phone, though, and I was like, well, like, this was the car they were going to take, but it was, like, a truck.
Now it's on the side of the road.
Yeah. And I was like, but it was a black Volkswagen, I think, and it was, like, a Jetta. And they're like, so she didn't want to go. I was like, no, like, it was clearly, like, he pulled her out of the car. Like, what information do you have? I was like, I was new to driving. I was like, I know one of the streets because I'm reading it now, but they went like south. I didn't know my directions.
No, literally, yeah, no.
And then I was like, but the car on the side of the road at that stop sign is one that one of them left. So like, you need to check on that. And she's just like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm like, ah!
Yeah.
I saw this lady get kidnapped and.
Wow.
Well, dang.
So one of my stories is one time me and Mandy, we were like, I must have been in 5th grade at the absolute oldest. So like 4th or 5th grade, we went to Hobby Lobby with my parents, and they were off doing like their own thing, and they're like, yeah, just walk around the store, and they gave us one of their flip phones so we could call them when it was time to leave, because we didn't have our own phones. And so me and Mandy are like walking around, looking at crafts, looking at whatever we wanted to do, and we just are just walking around, and then we would like walk down an aisle, and I'd look, and there was a guy, and then we keep going, and then there was a guy. Like, he was like matching our pace.
Same guy or different
Same
guys?
guy. Same guy.
Just
like
a guy at every eye.
Hey, like, too many guys are in here.
40-year-old bald guy.
Ew. Wait, how old are you? 5th grade.
5th grade, at the oldest.
Got it.
So,
That file.
like, yeah, definitely. So, like, just every time we're going down, we're walking past an aisle, he's, like, matching our speed, like, the whole way.
Ooh.
And I just remember, like, me and
That's like a
Mandy,
scary movie.
picking up, like, our pace, like, looking at each other, like...
Eventually you're both just, like, running, like, making eye contact with him. That's not funny, but...
It was so scary. And, like, we were just, like, walking, trying to find our parents, because we were just, like, trying to run away from this guy. And then I remember... we, like, stopped, and I pulled out the phone to, like, call my mom, and he left. Like, the second I pulled out the phone, like, he was gone. He was like, I don't want anything to do with that.
What did you say to your parents? Did you tell them?
No.
Why didn't you tell them? I would have ran to my parents immediately and been like, listen to this.
No, we're just gonna like,
get him.
We're
hey
like,
mom, how's it going?
we're like, whoop, that was weird.
Oh my gosh.
We're safe now. I mean, we don't need to tell her. She would probably like call the cops and then
Yeah, she'd make a
Freak out.
big deal out of it. We're good.
we're fine. Nothing happened.
You're like, Mom, it's not as bad as the Titanic. Let's pray for those people. I can't believe she literally... Okay, different story. This, aside, but this is like one of the main reasons why I'm against cameras in houses. Not... Well, you're here from the story, but... So... And the family that I worked for, that I named for a few years ago, they had cameras in their house, in the kitchen, dining room area, and then in the living room, because they had a really bad nanny before me, and she was doing things like leaving them in their rooms for like 3 hours at a time, alone, and like just weird stuff. So they were like, we have cameras, which I hated, but because no one wants to be constantly watched.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so. And now I hate them even more from this story, but I was over there one morning, and we're sitting at the dining room table, and they're like eating breakfast, and one of them is coloring or whatever, and we're talking, and the mom like leaves the room, and you hear this like, should we wait for Lindsay? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We hear this whistle, like very distinct, low, like. It was like a whistle while you work whistle, like someone would be doing while they're mindlessly doing something, right? I can't whistle. The girls are still coloring, and the mom walks in, and I can't remember exactly what she said, but she said something to the effect of like, oh, I didn't know you knew how to whistle, or like, oh, you were whistling, or like something like that, alluding that I just did the whistling,
Like,
right?
oh, what song is that?
Yeah, something like that. Like, oh, you did something like that. And I was like, oh, I didn't whistle. And then she goes, I can't whistle. And we both like looked at each other, and it was like that moment where we were staring at each other, and we were like, that was so close and in this room that we both thought the other person did it. And she was like, she just starts like getting this look on her face, this like almost like panicked look, and she's like, do they have any toys that make that sound? And I was like, no. Like, I mean, that was like so specifically a whistle. Like, I feel like you can tell when something's a toy. It has like a certain sound. And she was like, why don't you stay here? And I was like, okay. And she just starts, like, walking around the house, like, opening closets. And, like, very casually to not scare the girls, but, like, literally looking around for someone. Like, that is how much it sounded like there was a whistle in this room. Like, and so she's, like, looking around. She, like, goes down to the basement, which, like, you wouldn't have been able to hear from the basement, but she's, like, literally, she's like, surely someone is in here. Like, and so she's, like, walking around, checks the basement, comes back up, and she's like, no one's in here. And I was like, the girls go to, like, watch TV, and we're talking, and she's like, am I crazy? And I was like, no, like, someone whistled in here. And I remember her being like, there was, like, concern and stress where she was like, should I leave? Like, it was literally that intense. And so finally she was like, do you think you'd be okay? And I'm like, I mean, if there's no one in here, yeah. But that's how much it was like, someone literally whistled in here. And so she, like, leaves, and I remember being like, we're gonna be gone all day. So I, like, packed lunches. We were, like, at the park for hours. We, like, went to Wonderscope for hours. Like, we were gone. Finally, we had to come home after, we had been gone for, like, 5 or 6 hours, like, and we had to come home. And I remember sitting them in front of the TV and sitting on the couch and making a game plan, like, if someone walked up the basement stairs or, like, walked in the room, like, because even though it had been hours, I was still so scared after hearing that. I wish that you guys could experience it. It was, like, so eerie. The eeriest thing that's ever happened to me. So then, she gets home, she's like, did anything happen today? I'm like, no. Like, yeah, someone was in here, like, I've caught them. Like, what am I gonna say?
Like, I have them tied up in the basement.
And she's just like, that was just so weird. And I was like, I know. And so then, like, a few days went by, and they came and talked to me, and they were like, so I think we're going to turn off the cameras for a while, because after I told the dad about it, she was like, he looked into it, and the cameras had been hacked, like the network that we use the cameras on, and it looks like that someone had been, she didn't want to say, like, someone had been watching, but she was like, someone had access to them for the last, like, 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like,
did they have cameras in all the rooms?
No, in the living room and then in the, like, kitchen, dining room area. They used to have one in the oldest girl's bedroom, and they took it out because I remember them being like, yeah, what if someone, like, by chance, like, hacked it in? Well, I remember having that conversation with them, so we don't want it in her bedroom where she's, like, changing and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, someone was watching through the cameras and whistled through, because you could talk through the cameras, whistled through the cameras that morning. And so that's, like, why we thought that it was someone in the room, because it was right there in the kitchen between the both of us, because she was in the laundry room, which is here, kitchen, dining room, and the camera's, like, right here. So, creepy.
That reminded me of one that I have really quick. Like, I got home, or we had, like, a Track Awards banquet, and, like, I think it was my dad's last year or whatever, so, like, all of my siblings went, all our family went, and then we went back to my parents' house to have dessert, and I get there first, and I walk in, and, like, the front door was unlocked and open, and I was like,
open? So the glass door
was
closed.
closed, yes, but, like, the door was open, and I was like, okay, like, I should be careful or whatever, so I put all my stuff away or everything, and then I swear I heard something in the basement, and I was like, no. And so I went out of the house, got in my car, whatever, kept the garage door open. I was like, I'm just gonna watch the house. And so I waited till everybody got there. My dad pulls up, and he's like, Libby, what are you doing in your car? And I'm like, I think there's someone in the house. He goes, there's no one in the house. I'm like, and then I told my mom and Grace, they're like, don't go in, let's call the police. My dad, for some reason, even though the police are free, we pay taxes for the police.
He's like, I can't afford that.
Yeah, he's like, if you call the police too many times, like, they're gonna, and it's nothing there, they're not gonna come. I'm like, they're gonna come? What are you talking about, bro?
It's literally a boy cried wolf situation. He's like, we are on our 3rd strike.
That's what he thinks. I'm like, I literally heard something in the basement. He's like, no, it's fine. He, like, goes in there, whatever. And then
they're
Joe
like, Jim Langford? Yeah, we're not coming.
This guy,
you got too many false alarms. We thought someone was in your house and no one was there. We need someone to catch, so.
Also, we're giving you a psych reference because you're saying things.
And so my dad, like, starts to go in, and my mom's like, no, Jim, stop, or whatever. And then Joe pulls up, and Joe is, like, always armed or whatever. So we're like, Joe, like, go in. Yeah. And so we're like, he's like, I'll go check it out or whatever. This also happened again last year where we were scared in the house, and we had Joe come over and check the house. Like,
he's just going through every room.
No, seriously, like, he's like gone through, and he's like, And so he goes through with
He's
my
like,
dad.
Claire.
He goes through with my dad. No one was in the house, but it was like really scary. And like in my old bedroom, in the toy box, there's this like huge stuffed dog. I don't
Also,
know if you
the
guys
toy
remember that.
box, terrifying. Just the toy box in general.
Yeah, but like the toy box or whatever, there's a huge stuffed dog and it's like skin tone colored. So like Joe was shooting your dog. He almost did. He almost did. And my dad's the one
You
like,
come up, there's feathers everywhere. You're like,
because Joe's holding his gun or whatever, and my dad's going with him, and he's like, okay, open that door. My dad opens the door, and then Joe's checking things or whatever, you know? And then he's like, okay, pull it up wherever he goes. Ah! And you're like, ah! And I was like, oh my gosh, there's someone in my room. There was someone in my room, and you're like, Joe goes, oh my gosh, I thought you stuffed dog with a person. I was like,
he's mad at you. He's like, why do you have this?
yeah, my dad said, we're getting rid of that now. And then they got rid of it the next day.
I mean, how old are you though? When was
This was like, when did he quit? Whenever Grace graduated high school, so she was 8, about to be 18.
So like 3 years ago?
So like 20. It was 5 years, just a year ago. I was 20.
Okay.
I have to turn 21.
Okay.
But dude, freaking, I was like, oh my gosh, that was awful. But anyway, yeah, that was my.
Your dad angrily stomping out with the dog, throwing it in the trash.
We're getting rid of this. He's like, it scared me, Joe.
Too bad.
It scared me.
It scared me.
Puppy, go bye bye.
We're getting rid of it. He's like, I'm throwing it in the woods and burning it.
Target practice.
Yeah. Could be.
He's like,
He's
you'll never scare me again.
Puppy dog.
You come home, he's literally hanging from the deck by like a noose.
My dad comes out with like a knife and he's like, Dad!
Nobody scares Jim Langford.
So I have 2 times from one trip that me and my friend Molly, I guess I can say her name.
Was it the homeless, the guy with the brick?
That was in Kansas City.
Okay.
So I'll side note that one in. So I'll do 3 in 1 real quick. So we went to California on a spur whim of the moment, which is a thing people say.
A spur whim of the moment.
Which is a thing people say.
In California.
So we're staying with my uncle and we're going to visit my friend who was going to school in Long Beach at the time. And so we leave, take the train that's right outside my uncle's just straight to Long Beach. It was a great coincidence that we were able to just get on the train and go. Well, we stay there, we're in Long Beach, and we're like, well, it's time to go back. But we did happen to pass through like Compton and other things, towns that you hear about.
On the train?
On the train. And it was fine during the day, no threat at all. I didn't feel any hesitation more than just walking around LA, because you feel like you're on edge all the time. But coming back, it was going to be about 11 at night. So, me and my 19-year-old friends, 18-year-old, 19-year-old friends, I was like 20 at the time, hop on the train and go back through Compton. And there was this man who was in a wheelchair the whole entire time just harassing us. And, like, I get a text from, we were pretty, like, tired this part of the trip. I get a text from Molly, and she says, I really hope he needs the wheelchair. Because he's just the whole time just, like, heckling us for, like 15, 20 minutes. Or we're, like, the
He's
only
on the
young
train, too?
white females.
Okay.
Like, there's no one young, there's no one white, and there's no other females on this train.
Really?
And, yeah. So we're, like, we were the dumb ones.
Yeah, right.
So
You did not know your place.
Yeah, we were like, oh, well, we did. We thought, we're like, hey, let's see how much an Uber would be and split it. It was like $700, $500. We're like, not worth our life. And so we were like, all right. So we go back on the train. He's just harassing us. Gets
What
off
did he
like
say?
a stop before it.
Is it like not camera safe?
He was just like, hey, you guys got weed? Hey, blah, blah, where you
Oh.
going? You guys going to party? Like,
He wanted
just
to
like,
strike up a business.
yeah, we were,
Money,
he was proposing a
drugs.
business. During this trip, which I forget about, the only other white people on the train come running on, ripping tags off new items of clothing, taking off their old ones, putting on new shoes, throwing everything, all the old stuff, and then, who wants these shoes? And Marcy,
like-
please don't watch this. mom and like, hey, just let you know we're on a train through Compton right
So
now.
it's
We're being
1
harassed.
a.m.
Yeah.
Also,
No,
it's
it's
like 2 a.m.
No, it's like 1.
No,
Or 11.
Missouri time.
Oh, yeah. She texts
like
her mom and is
1
like,
a.m.
hey, just wanted to let you know if we go missing, this is why. Phone dies. Her phone dies. So I'm texting her mom. She's like, hey, just want to make sure everyone's okay. I'm like, yes, her phone died.
You just
We're
sent
about
her a silent video of you just.
yeah. I was like, we're about to get off at the next stop. I'll let you know when we're off. And so, like, we safely get off. But later that trip, like, my uncle was not in the nicest part of LA, which is an oxymoron, a nice part of LA. And me, Kaylee, Molly's friend who lives there, there's, 4 of us. We take Molly's friend's car, and we're locking...
Molly's friends.
We're locking it up in the fence that they have for the parking lot. And then Molly and her friend go up to the door and start unlocking that, because you also have to lock that. So I'm locking the fence, they're locking that. I turn around the corner, and this homeless man is yanking on the door, and Molly and her friend are pulling on the other side, looking terrified.
To go into the house?
To go into the house. And I'm like,
They're like, help!
yeah,
Help!
that's what it looks like. And I'm standing there with my friend, and I'm like,
Where are you helping?
what was I gonna do? So I was thinking,
Help? What do you mean?
No, I was thinking, and I go, this is what I thought. After a long deliberation, what felt like probably more than what it should have been, my response was, excuse me. He looks me dead in the eye,
Wait, so you're
turns white,
wait.
and runs away.
Wait, so you're on the outside with him. They're on the inside.
You said, excuse me.
Yeah, I sit there, I'm like, what do I do? Excuse me.
Hey, it worked.
It worked. He looked at me, he was like, oh, and then ran.
And probably by you saying excuse me, he's like, cop.
Cop.
That-
Excuse me,
And
sir.
excuse me to that situation shows authority.
Like, excuse me?
Yeah, that was my
Like,
thought
the
message. Not
casualness?
like,
The casualness of an excuse me to that.
I think I did the
Authority.
finger too.
Authority.
I did the finger too.
He's
Like,
like,
excuse me.
This girl knows too much. I'm sure I need through.
And so, going off of that one, there was also this time where I was in not the nicest part of Kansas City.
Where were
but
you? Okay.
So, like, people like to say, oh yeah, it's safe, like, blah, blah.
I think it's generally known as not being great.
Yeah, it's known for not being great, but, like, if you're smart there during the daylight with a
That's
group of
east side,
people,
right?
yeah,
It's in the Northeast, yeah.
it's like,
That's what I thought.
you can be smart about it and enjoy the park.
Like,
Because
people
it
go
is a
to
nice park.
people go to climb and walk and
Yeah, and that's where we hold, like, skate events every month. And so...
But there were like random frisbee
Bodies.
golf people
Oh.
that got shot.
Shot,
randomly,
yeah.
You know, and bodies. And
bodies, yeah. Found.
Yeah, they dump all the
Rolled.
bodies in the lake.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I was there before my friends were during the day, and I was like, okay, it's Cliff Drive.
Alone?
Yeah, so I waited in my car. I, like,
Okay.
backed up into the fence where we always park,
Yeah.
and I was just waiting. And I look, and I see in my rearview mirror this man, like, hobbling out of the woods.
Oh no.
And I was like, there's a lot
How
of
old?
homeless
How
people
old is he?
in the area. I don't remember, maybe, like, 40s, if I had to guess.
But he was
But
probably
he was homeless, he was wearing, like, baggy clothes, like,
Hard to
dirty.
tell.
a lot
Yeah.
younger, but probably looked a lot older.
Yeah, he's like hobbling out, and I just see him go, and he throws a brick at my car, and I'm in the car, and I guess I chose to fight, so I grabbed the
Well,
airsoft
because it
gun.
didn't hit a window, too. It hit.
Oh
our
yeah, he was
truck.
definitely going for the window because he kept walking after he
He
did that.
probably wanted to get into it.
Yeah, so I was like, oh no,
Do you
no,
think he
no,
saw you?
no, until I decided to fight. Instead of driving away, which I should have probably done, I was in a car backed up to a fence. I could have just drove
Yeah.
off.
Why, yeah.
I grabbed my airsoft gun and my pocket knife because he's still walking towards me, and I open up the door and I like pop out, and I was like, what was I gonna do at that point? So luckily,
Hey, yeah.
yeah,
Literally, I would have been like, I'm never stepping foot outside.
I'm like
this car.
20. I'm a 20-year-old little girl, and I'm like, let's go, old man. And he just like looks at me and just runs back into the woods.
No hobbling. He suddenly found his speed.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
my knees are fixed.
But if he was really trying to get your car, it wouldn't make sense because he hit your back bumper.
Well, he probably
Well,
had horrible aim.
Yeah,
But
it
if
was
he
like a.
He loved
Oh.
it.
No,
and
but I'm
it was
saying
just
it
fell
wouldn't make
short.
sense to break your back window if
I know, but he's like probably not.
And he
Thinking
wasn't all there.
logically.
Yeah. So I
He's like, that's a window I can cross.
yeah, the
through
adrenaline
today."
came up, and I was like, I drove off, and there's like a lot of people like exercise there, and there's like 2 like walkers walking down. I was like, did you guys see that? And they were like also kind of on edge because it's not the best part. They're like, no. I was like, a guy just walked out of the woods and threw a brick at my car, and they're like,
They were crazy. You were crazy too. They were like, oh my god, we gotta go. Like,
they're like, ah! I was like, all right, have a good day. He just drove off.
you just like panic word vomit, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, dude, we don't care.
Yeah, they're like, oh, okay. I was like, well, you're walking towards him. I assumed.
Like, have fun, danger.
Yeah, I felt like
you call your friends, they're like, we're picking a
Yeah.
spot.
new spot. No, I called them and they were like, yeah, let's meet at the skate shop. Burning Spider Stoke Company off East 39th, West 39th Street.
I was thinking about just situations where like you're having a fun, good time, and then something happens where like I can only think of like one example, but just like when all of a sudden something changes and you're like, oh wait, this is scary. Like you go from like
Yeah, a
having
guy
fun
shoving you into
to,
the
like,
castle.
scary like so quick, but like the example that I can think of, I'm sure there's more, but is when we were walking in the woods with Olivia and her sister and Mandy, and we had like our backpacks, and like I think I was 14
You're the only one who had a phone.
So I was like 14 or 15, and so we were like getting ready, and I wasn't gonna bring my phone because we were gonna walk along the creek, and I didn't want it to fall into the creek, and so I was gonna leave it, but for some reason we ended up bringing it. I don't know if it was your mom or not.
Or yeah, I think
but-
she said like, oh, please have a phone on
Yeah,
you or something.
So I had like a Ziploc bag for my phone, and we just like went along, and we'd done this multiple times. Like we were pretty familiar with the woods, and then we started walking, and then we got turned around somehow, which me and Mandy are pretty good at navigation, so it takes.
I
a while.
knew where we were at. Grace did not.
And all of a sudden, like we don't know where we are, and we find like this random shed that like we've never seen before, and then we found like deer parts. Like we found like
You're
a
like,
deer-
the shed is in the middle of like a field that's like, you know how like in the movies you'll see like in like
You guys are like, have you heard of Jeffrey Dahmer?
But we found like a deer nose that had been like chopped
Yeah.
off, and it was like stuck with like a stick
No!
through it on the ground. And
Outside or inside?
Outside.
Did you go inside?
No.
we just
We're not
saw it and we
that
were like,
bad.
turn around.
Was it locked?
We
We didn't
didn't
try.
We didn't even go up to
saw
it.
and we were freaked
Was
out.
there
We
a
were like
window?
50 feet away.
Were there a window?
Probably, yeah.
I don't know, but when we went like a couple years ago, I was hoping we'd find it.
Yeah, we didn't find it.
But so we started like freaking out because we don't know, we've never seen this shed before, and we're kind of like freaked out, and so we're lost. And then I think we're like walking one direction, and then Olivia calls her mom, and she goes and stands on the back deck
Sam. Or
And-
Sam.
and starts yelling. And like we're going like the wrong direction. We hear the yelling, and we're like, oh, we should need to go that way.
Well, she would call her and she goes, Sam, they're lost. Go out and find them. Because Sam, at that point, he used to like go in the wood. Like he used to go out like in the morning because he was the guy who hunts on our land was teaching him to hunt with a bow, and so he'd go out in the morning and like just like watch
So
deer.
he was kind of a modern day Sacagawea situation.
Yeah. So she's like, go find them. So he just like I remember he like put on all of his like camo gear and stuff. I'm like,
No.
and his boots.
He's like,
And he goes out there, whatever, and we saw him he like made it to the
Shoots
treehouse,
us?
and then we made it there or something.
he comes back, he's like, Mom, I found them.
Dead. It wasn't me.
He has all your heads.
It's his cabin.
No,
It's his cabin.
That's why we weren't able to find it. He's like, they found it. I gotta get rid of the evidence.
Oh my gosh. That would
But
be
like
crazy.
Lindsay didn't emphasize the deer parts. The deer parts were like we asked the guy.
They
who
were
hunted-
outside?
Yes,
Like, were they
Like-
hanging?
yes.
Or
Like
just kinda
like
strewn
well, like
about.
do you remember like they were?
There was more than just the nose, but the nose part is what stands out to me.
But
And
it
so-
was like we asked the guy who hunted like what animal would do this, and he was like, I don't think that's an animal. Like someone else did that because it was like someone like took a deer, ripped it apart, and like threw the like
Paint me a
skin.
word or a
Skin,
visual.
ears, like bloody
So
stuff
it's
everywhere.
just like there was no like method to it.
Nope.
So it wasn't like hanging for meat. It wasn't like hanging. It was like in the yard laying, just laying.
over like bushes, over like twigs, and over things like.
Did
so
it look
laid up.
purposeful?
Mm-mm.
It wasn't like
Okay.
butchering, it was like
No.
slaughtering.
Yeah, it was like a
the
slaughter.
stick through the nose. That's purposeful.
Was there
Yeah.
blood
Oh yeah, everywhere.
everywhere?
Because we were like, did an animal do it? But Lindsay with the nose, she was like, no way an animal did that.
So it's like there's just like parts hanging over, trees hanging over,
Mhm.
whatever, but no like someone didn't do this. It was kind of like,
Willy-nilly.
and
Yeah,
not
it
like
was weird.
I don't have anywhere else to put this.
Oh
part.
no, it was weird. It was creepy.
I like to
Creepy
say
AF.
that Lindsay's story of Hobby Lobby and this one I don't remember very well, so it was all a new experience for me.
That's nice.
You don't remember getting
Mandy just
lost?
blacked out in both those stories.
The joys of having a Batman.
But honestly, I do enjoy getting lost. It takes a lot to get lost. So yesterday, we went to Olivia's sister's bridal shower, and I told Olivia, I don't think I'll be able to get out of this neighborhood without a GPS. Did it.
Good job.
Yeah, I don't like using GPSs like unless I'm on a time crunch.
Yeah.
I like
All right.
it.
Well, Rachel, do you want to tell your final creepy story to wrap us up?
Yeah.
This is a worst one that in my opinion.
So, I just started with a family. It was my first or second day. It was very early on, the family that I was dating. And, I was upstairs in the kitchen. So there was like, you would come in and it was like all, dining room, kitchen, living room, another like living room area, all big kind of circle. And then you could go upstairs or go downstairs to an unfinished basement. And, so I'm like sitting at the kitchen table, and where the kitchen table is, there's the kitchen table, there's like the kitchen this way, living room this way, and then like almost right ahead of the kitchen table is the stairs down to the basement. And I'm trying to even remember. I think she was napping when this happened, because I don't remember her being around. But they had left, didn't tell me. Usually parents are pretty good about like, if someone's gonna be over, they tell you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I hear something downstairs, and they did. I had not been down there yet because it was like my second day. And someone comes up and opens the door, not the dad, and peeks his head in, and I'm like, hello? Like, I was like, can I help you? And he was like, yeah, I'm doing work on the basement, which makes sense because it's an unfinished basement, but like they hadn't told me, and I was like, that's really weird. And he goes, I'm really sorry. I'm gonna go back down and get some stuff out of my truck, and then I'll come back in. And I was like, okay. So I go over and so you can lock the basement door where like if someone's down there they can't come up, which is that normal?
Some
Okay.
houses have that, yeah.
Okay. They just like keep things down there. And so I lock it, and I go to text the mom, and I'm like, hey, I think I said maybe handyman is here or something. Your handyman is here. I don't know what I said. I just told her that about that. And about that time, I'm like waiting for her to respond, and I look over, and this guy, it's like funny now, but this guy is running. I look out the front windows, and there's this like van out front. He's running up around the house, runs, gets in this car, and just peels out. And I'm like, that's weird. Like, just runs, sprinting. Like, if he had tripped, it would have been, like, totally normal. Like, he was just sprinting through the sky. And so she calls me, and she's like, we didn't have anyone coming over today. And I'm like, well, a guy came up through your basement and said that he was working on the basement, said he was going to get something out of his car, and he just ran around the back, got in his car, and left. And she's like, okay, now that you know he's gone, can you go down and like make sure that like just make sure all the doors are locked, make sure all the windows are locked, whatever. And I remember being like, I don't really want to go down there alone now, but I did just see him leave, and I'm sure that if someone else was here, they would have left
the
with
same
him.
car.
So I go down, make sure everything, the back door was unlocked and open, and so I like shut it, locked it, whatever. But yeah, that could have gone. I'm really glad that guy was like so spooked. Yeah, I think it also happened so fast that I don't remember being scared. I just remember being like, oh, that's weird that they didn't let me know. So
that's what makes it one of the scariest to me. 'Cause it's like that is literally like someone just breaking and entering or whatever, and you're like not scared. But then afterwards, I would have been like, oh my gosh! Like,
Well,
we didn't have anyone coming over. And it's like in the movies when the music goes,
Yeah.
hands over your face. You're like,
And I think it helped that it was like noon. You know what I mean? It was like broad daylight. The guy was really like.
the intruder was
Nice.
the intruder was nice.
Good guy.
He was
Did
so
you
nice.
feel like a weird vibe when you was like, oh,
Well-
yeah, I got something in my truck.
Well, no, I thought it was really because we had like a conversation. So like, I thought it was a little weird. It's the only thing that startled me was when he opened the door and kind of poked just his head out, and I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me, and then
So excuse me is a normal response.
yeah. If you're from
That's what I'm
Missouri.
titling this.
But she
Excuse me.
didn't think he was a threat.
Sorry.
At that time, she didn't.
I didn't know it all happened really, and then he goes, "Oh, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm the person working on the basement." So, also, I'm just thinking about this just now. But how did he know that I didn't live there? Like that I wouldn't be the owner, being like, "What are you doing in my house?"
He must have been watching them.
Because
Yeah.
he said, "Oh, I'm the one that's working on the house." Like as if he knew I wouldn't know that otherwise.
Unless he
Because I don't
was
think,
already working on like a neighbor's basement and went into the wrong house. Because like one time my dad's friend was
Okay.
staying with us and
Yes.
he went into my neighbor's house who's like a widow older lady.
Mhm.
And he like walked in and she's like, ah! And he's like, ah!
Okay, yeah, that actually happened to my cousin because my cousin is a tiler and he does like that's his main job. And he does houses all over and whatever. And his boss one time gave him the wrong address.
Oh gosh.
And no, it was he actually like it like scarred him for life because a lot of the houses you do just walk in usually when you're working.
Mhm.
And so he sent him the wrong address and my cousin walked into this guy's basement and the guy drew a gun on him in the basement. And my cousin was like, "I'm here to do tiling. Like, I don't know." And the guy was like, I'm not getting my floor tiled." And my cousin was like, "I'm so sorry. Like, my boss gave me this address, blah, blah, blah." Which, like,
Oh my God.
does seem kind of suspicious at the... But, like, he does. Like, they go to houses all the time and just walk in.
Yeah.
And so that happened to him. So I didn't really think about that until now that maybe... And maybe he was like, "Oh my gosh, I literally..." Like, maybe while he was down there, gets a text being like... Because my cousin also isn't the main guy, so I could see him being like, not knowing who the owner is, my cousin, in situations like that, being like, "Oh, I'm the guy that's working on the basement." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever. So maybe he didn't have any ill intent, and then he got a text while he was like down there, and the guy was
And
like,
that's why he sprinted
He's
away.
like,
Wrong
hey, here,
house.
where are you? Oh, I'm
Exactly.
upstairs or something.
exactly, which maybe I don't know what I would do in that situation. I would hope that I wouldn't just like run. Hopefully I would be, but that's so embarrassing. Like to
Fight or
go-
flight.
Go back up and be like, "I'm so sorry. I'm not supposed to be here." Like that's so.
Well, yeah, anytime that's happened to me where I walked into the wrong house, because that has happened multiple times now with my job. Yeah, I've walked in a house that I thought was going to be empty and someone was living in it, and I've done it with apartments too.
That is, yeah. Well, I think. Yeah, now I'm less scared now that we just talked through that because I have never thought of that angle before until just now. That like maybe he was just like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Like wrong house." Which it makes sense if he was down there. Which I don't know why. I don't know. There's a lot of angles we could think about this. Like why he came upstairs to like poke his head up. I guess maybe just to say I'm here.
Yeah, that could have been one.
Yeah, I don't know.
Dang.
But it would make sense, not to like scare you, but it would make sense because you were a new routine.
Yeah.
If he had been watching the house,
Yeah.
Mhm.
he wouldn't know that someone was going to be there
Right.
because you were just starting.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Well, on that creepy note, thank you for watching this week's episode, and go Chiefs.
The
And-
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.
Good just.
It's so good to say.
Good
But, yeah.
Good chest.
And yeah, we will be back later. But yeah. Bye. Okay.
I knew.